Greetings, friends. My name is Pavlo Shtermach, and now we will unveil the top news of these days. The Russian authorities decided to unilaterally change the country's maritime borders with Lithuania and Finland in the Baltic Sea. The Moscow Times drew attention to this, referring to the draft resolution of the Russian government. The Ministry of Defense prepared a document according to which Russia intends to declare part of the water area in the east of the Gulf of Finland, as well as near the cities of Baltic and Zelenogradsk in the Kaliningrad region, as its internal sea waters. For this purpose, the geographic coordinates of the points that determine the position of the starting lines from which the width of the territorial sea of the Russian Federation, as well as the adjacent zone near the coast and islands, are measured, will be changed. On the border with Finland, the government of Russia intends to adjust the coordinates in the area of several islands, as well as near the northern entrance cape of the Narva River. According to the annex to the resolution, on the border with Lithuania, the area of the Curonian Spit in the Gulf of Gdansk, the areas of Cape Taran and the Baltic Spit come under review. The authors of the project claim that the current geographical coordinates do not fully correspond to the modern geographical situation. The Kremlin proposes that the 40-year-old resolution of the Council of Ministers of the USSR, which regulates the borders in the Baltic, be partially recognized as invalid. The border revision document was presented for public discussion almost simultaneously with the start of exercises on the use of tactical nuclear weapons. In the Russian military department, the need to clarify the coordinates was justified by the fact that the direct initial lines of the borders in the Gulf of Finland do not have a continuation and do not close to the territory of Russia. In addition, the Ministry of Defense noted that the coordinates of the points once long ago were determined on small-scale maps and do not correspond to the modern situation. And the situation as such in the Baltic Sea has almost completely become an internal sea of NATO. At the same time, the commander-in-chief of the Swedish Armed Forces, Mikael Boden, believes that Putin wants to control the Baltic Sea.
Yes, I am sure that Putin even has both eyes on Gotland. Putin's goal is to gain control of the Baltic Sea. He probably also has his eye on the Åland Islands. The Russians are closely monitoring what is happening at the entrances and exits to the Baltic Sea. Mikael Boden, Commander-in-Chief of the Swedish Armed Forces.
But if Putin invades Gotland, he will be able to threaten NATO countries from the sea. This would be the end of peace and stability in the Nordic and Baltic regions, Boden added. He emphasized that if Russia takes control and closes the Baltic Sea, it will have a huge impact on life in Sweden and all other Baltic Sea countries. The commander-in-chief emphasized that Gotland is Swedish territory. Therefore, Sweden has a responsibility to protect it, and Gotland has a right to protection. According to him, Sweden defends Gotland and can also use the island for offensive operations if necessary. Of course, today the Kremlin went back. According to Russian media, with reference to a certain military diplomatic source, Russia did not have and has no intention of revising the state border, economic zone and continental shelf lines in the Baltic. And why does this source say this and not the Minister of Defense, or at least the spokesperson of the ministry, or at least Zakharova of the Foreign Affairs? Because what this source says is not the official position of the Kremlin. And at the end of the day, I would like to ask you only one question. Is encroachment on the territory of Lithuania and Finland already an aggression against NATO countries, or do we still have to wait for permission to fight back? A bipartisan group of congressmen in the US called on the Pentagon to allow Ukraine to attack targets in Russia. Mike Turner said that Ukraine could be given permission to shoot at strategic targets in Russia under certain circumstances. Lawmaker believes that Ukrainians cannot effectively defend themselves because of the policies of the Biden administration, which needs to be changed. Congressmen also call on the Pentagon to increase the number of Ukrainian pilots trained by the US on F-16 fighters. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in an interview with Reuters, said that the Western allies are taking far too long to make key decisions on military support for Kyiv. Every decision we come to is delayed by about a year, Zelensky said, commenting on the situation with the supply of weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. According to him, at the moment, Kyiv urgently needs at least 120 fighters to counter Russia in the air. Can't provide this right now? Good, let's return to the planes that you have on the territory of neighboring NATO countries. Take them, shoot down targets, protect the civilian population, Zelensky called. The Ukrainian president would like greater involvement of allied countries in the defensive war against Russia. It is a matter of will, he pointed out, but everyone says a word that sounds the same in all languages. Everyone is afraid of escalation. Everyone is used to the fact that Ukrainians are dying. For people, this is not escalation. Zelensky also said that Kyiv is negotiating with partners on the use of Western weapons to strike Russian military equipment on the territory of Russian Federation. But so far, there is no agreement in such attacks. Although there are positive changes, the head of the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the French Parliament, Jean-Louis Boulanger, called on Paris to lift the taboo on striking Russian territory with French weapons. Boulanger wrote a letter to French leadership in which he urged them to abandon restraint and make a decision, following the example of Britain, which allowed Ukrainian troops to use their weapons against Russia on the Russian territory. It seems that the time has come. The right decision to self-defense excludes the right to inviolability of aggressor's territory, he emphasized, adding that the change in doctrine will be absolutely legal, as it will put an end to asymmetry between the aggressor and the victim. At the same time, Boulanger emphasized that neither France nor other Western partners of Ukraine want to fight with Russia. Therefore, it is not about their intervention in the theater of war, but about the lifting of an unjustified taboo, he wrote in his letter. Especially since Ukraine uses foreign weapons on the occupied territories and Crimea, which according to crazy Russian constitution is considered their territory. So what will change if territories 100 kilometers deep into Russia are added to this list? There is no need for the Ukrainian military anymore, just to prevent the accumulation of forces for further attacks on Kharkiv, Sumy, or other Ukrainian border territories. The Council of the European Union approved the transfer of income from Russian assets to Ukraine. Most of the money will go to military support for Kyiv. Potentially another $50 billion could be transferred to Ukraine from future income received from Russia's frozen assets. By 2027, frozen Russian assets will bring about 15 to 20 billion euros in profits. The first 2 billion euros received from them will be paid in July. Deputy President of the European Commission, European Commissioner for European Values and Transparency, Vera Zhurnova, spoke about this.
I think that it's very important that there is the formal adoption of the proposals on the use of the extraordinary revenues of immobilized assets. In other words, the perpetrator has to pay. And it is a very timely decision which will allow us to pay almost 2 billion euro in pre-financing in July until the regular disbursements can start later this year. So this is the money for Ukraine which they badly need. And I want to underline as well that we are working on the next round of the sanctions against Russia and Belarus, and they
At the same time, a more ambitious plan to use future income from the frozen Russian assets is being promoted by the United States. It consists of mobilizing the Russian Federation's money and providing it to Ukraine as a loan, the interest on which will be paid on the annual profit from those Russian assets. We are talking about $50 billion. According to Bloomberg, Germany is ready to support Washington's proposal. Berlin's consent would be decisive in the matter of receiving a new aid package for Kyiv. Now, US and EU officials say the US proposal is gaining momentum. Discussions are expected to continue at the meeting of G7 finance ministers and central bank governors, which begins on May 23rd in Italy. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the EU and the United States blocked the assets of the Central Bank of Russian Federation in the amount of about 260 billion euros. More than two-thirds of this is frozen in the European Union, and probably this money could also reach Ukraine in a time. But for now, we are ready to wait. After all, Russian contributors are ahead. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support is that really matters. Goodbye.